There are villages in Europe that do not seem to belong to the real world. Places where the streets are cobblestoned and narrow, where the buildings are painted in colors that seem too vivid to be genuine, where flowers cascade from every window and balcony in such profusion that the architecture beneath them is almost invisible. Places where the morning mist sits in the valley below and the rooftops emerge from it like something from a story you were told as a child. These are the villages that look like they were designed by someone who had read too many fairy tales and decided to build one. And today, we are going to take you inside 7 of the most extraordinary ones in Europe, the hidden villages that look like they were lifted directly from the pages of a storybook. Number 7. Hallstatt, Austria. Hallstatt is so beautiful that it has been called the most beautiful village in the world, and it is a designation that is genuinely difficult to argue with when you see it for the first time. The village sits on the western shore of the Hallstatt, a lake of extraordinary clarity and color, surrounded by steep forested mountains that rise almost directly from the water, in a position of such dramatic natural beauty that it seems almost impossible that human beings chose this particular spot to build a community, and then stayed for over 7,000 years. Hallstatt is one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in Europe. The salt mines in the mountains above the village have been worked since prehistoric times, and the village itself carries within it a weight of history that is genuinely extraordinary for a place this small. The architecture of Hallstatt is as extraordinary as its setting. The buildings crowd together along the narrow strip of land between the lake and the mountain, some of them built directly over the water on wooden piles, their reflections doubling in the still surface of the lake on calm mornings. The colors of the facades, pale yellow and soft pink and warm white, contrast with the deep green of the forest behind them, and the extraordinary blue-green of the lake in front in a combination of color that is one of the most beautiful natural and architectural compositions in Europe. The village church, with its Gothic spire rising above the lakeside buildings and reflected in the water below, is one of the most photographed images in Austria. Number 6. Colmar, France. Colmar sits in the Alsace region of northeastern France, a region that has historically moved between French and German control so many times that its culture, its architecture, and its food represent an extraordinary blend of both traditions, and Colmar is its most extraordinary expression. The old town of Colmar, particularly the district known as La Petite Venice, the Little Venice, is a collection of timber-framed buildings of such extraordinary color and preservation that walking through it feels precisely like walking through the illustration of a fairy tale. The buildings lean slightly toward each other across the narrow streets, their upper floors overhanging the pavements below. Their colors, deep red and vivid yellow and rich blue and warm ochre, creating a visual richness that is almost overwhelming. The canals of La Petite Venice, the waterways that give the district its name, running between the colorful buildings with flower-filled window boxes reflected in the still water below, add a dimension of extraordinary beauty and calm that is unlike almost any other village environment in France. In summer, the flowers that hang from every balcony and windowsill and bridge are so profuse and so colorful that they become as much a part of the visual experience as the architecture itself. And the Christmas market that takes over Colmar each December, one of the most celebrated in Europe, transforms the already extraordinary town into something genuinely magical, its decorated streets and illuminated buildings creating a winter fairy tale of extraordinary beauty. Number 5. Giethoorn, Netherlands. Giethoorn is a village in the Dutch province of Overijssel that has no roads. None. The connections between the village's islands are made entirely by wooden footbridges, and by the waterways that run between the thatched roof farmhouses and gardens that line the canals on either side. Movement through the village is by boat, flat-bottomed punts that visitors pole slowly through the narrow channels between the gardens and the houses, or on foot across the bridges. The silence of Giethoorn is one of its most extraordinary qualities. Without road traffic, without the sound of engines, the village exists in a quiet that is specific to waterways and wooden bridges and the sound of birds in the reeds along the canal edges. The thatched roof farmhouses of Giethoorn, their roofs so thick and so perfectly maintained that they look more like something grown from the landscape than built upon it, are surrounded by gardens of extraordinary variety and color. In spring and summer, the gardens overflow with color, roses and irises and tulips and dozens of other species, growing in profusion along the canal edges, their reflections doubling in the still water, creating a visual experience of such concentrated natural and architectural beauty that Giethoorn has been called the Venice of the Netherlands. In autumn, the reeds along the canal edges turn gold, and the village takes on a quieter and more contemplative beauty that many visitors find even more extraordinary than the summer abundance. Number 4. Bibury, England. Bibury sits in the Cotswolds, the region of rolling green hills, and honey-colored stone villages in western England that is, by the consensus of people who have traveled there, the most quintessentially English landscape in the country, and Bibury is its most celebrated and most extraordinary village. The row of medieval weavers' cottages known as Arlington Row, built in the 14th century from the warm honey-colored Cotswold limestone, their steep stone-tiled roofs covered in moss and lichen, their small windows and low doorways unchanged since the medieval period, is one of the most photographed streetscapes in England. What makes Bibury extraordinary is not just Arlington Row but its entire setting, the River Colne running beside the village through water meadows of extraordinary green, the village church of extraordinary Norman architecture rising above the surrounding cottages, and the particular quality of light that falls on Cotswold stone in the late afternoon, turning it from honey to gold, to deep amber as the sun moves toward the horizon. Bibury is the kind of village that makes even people who have lived all their lives in England feel that they are seeing their own country for the first time, a distillation of everything that the English countryside at its most beautiful is supposed to look like. Number 3. Reine, Norway. Reine is a fishing village in the Lofoten Islands of northern Norway, and it is extraordinary for a reason that is completely unlike any other village on this list. Its beauty is not the beauty of medieval architecture, or colorful facades or flower-filled canals. It is the beauty of dramatic nature on an almost incomprehensible scale. The village sits at the base of a series of jagged mountain peaks that rise directly from the water of the fjord. Peaks so dramatic and so perfectly reflected in the still water of the fjord below them, that the combined image of mountain and reflection creates one of the most extraordinary natural compositions in Europe. The traditional red and yellow fishing cabins, the roerboer, that line the water's edge in Reine are small and simple, but their simplicity is part of what makes the scene so extraordinary. The human scale of the cabins against the enormous scale of the mountains behind them creates a contrast of such dramatic intensity that every photograph of Reine looks like a painting. In winter, when the mountains are snow-covered and the northern lights occasionally appear above the peaks, the village achieves a quality of beauty that is genuinely beyond description. And in summer, when the midnight sun keeps the sky luminous throughout the night, and the reflections in the fjord are at their most vivid, Reine is simply one of the most beautiful places on earth. Number 2. Český Krumlov, Czech Republic. Český Krumlov is a medieval town in the South Bohemian region of the Czech Republic, and it is one of the most completely preserved medieval urban environments in Central Europe. The old town sits on a peninsula formed by a tight bend in the Vltava River, almost completely surrounded by water, with a castle of extraordinary scale rising from the rock above it, its tower visible from almost every point in the town below. The town itself, its cobblestone streets, its Baroque and Renaissance buildings, its hidden courtyards and stairways and passages, is so extraordinarily preserved that it has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Walking through Český Krumlov is one of the most complete immersive experiences of medieval European urban life available anywhere in the continent. The streets are narrow and the buildings close, some of them leaning slightly toward each other above you as you walk, and at almost every turn, a new courtyard or stairway or view of the castle, or the river below reveals itself in a way that makes exploration feel genuinely inexhaustible. The castle itself, one of the largest castle complexes in Central Europe, contains within its extraordinary range of buildings and gardens a Baroque theater of such extraordinary preservation that it remains capable of staging performances exactly as it did 300 years ago. And finally, number 1, Hallstatt's neighbor across the Austrian lakes, and one of the most extraordinary small communities in the entire Alpine region, Annecy, France. Annecy sits at the northern tip of Lake Annecy in the French Alps, and it combines the extraordinary natural setting of an alpine lake with the extraordinary architectural beauty of a perfectly preserved medieval old town in a combination that produces, in almost everyone who visits it for the first time, a quality of genuine astonishment. The old town of Annecy, its canals running between medieval buildings of extraordinary color, its flower-filled bridges crossing the water at every few meters, its streets opening unexpectedly onto views of the lake and the mountains beyond, is genuinely among the most beautiful urban environments in France. The Canal du Thieu runs through the heart of the old town, its clear water reflecting the medieval buildings above it, the flowers on every bridge and balcony creating a composition of natural and architectural beauty that is specific to Annecy and available nowhere else. The Palais de l'Isle, a 12th century prison built on a small island in the canal, its pointed bow facing into the current like a stone ship, is one of the most extraordinary and most photographed medieval buildings in France. And the lake itself, Lake Annecy, whose water is among the cleanest in Europe, its surface a vivid turquoise blue ringed by alpine peaks of extraordinary beauty, gives the town a natural backdrop of such overwhelming scale and beauty that it elevates even the most ordinary moment of being there into something genuinely extraordinary. These 7 villages, Hallstatt, Colmar, Giethoorn, Bibury, Reine, Český Krumlov, and Annecy, are 7 of the most extraordinary places in Europe. Each one looks like it was lifted from the pages of a story. Each one offers a quality of beauty that is specific to its particular combination of architecture, landscape, and history. And each one reminds you that Europe, for all that it is mapped and photographed, and visited, still contains places of such extraordinary and concentrated beauty, that seeing them for the first time, feels genuinely like discovering something the world had been keeping secret. The most beautiful places are not always the most famous ones. Sometimes they are the ones that have been quietly, perfectly beautiful for centuries, waiting for the traveler who is curious enough to find them.